Hello, good morning, everybody, and happy World Food Day, because today is actually a special day for our community, so happy World Food Day to everyone. On behalf of the organizers, Hivos, RUAF, Actionaid Italy, and Rikolto, it's a real pleasure to welcome you here in this beautiful university, and I hear it's also a place that is quite emotional for a lot of youth because this is actually where students graduate from the university. So quite a special place for young people here in Milan. So my name is Charlotte Fléchet. I work for Rikolto as a global program director for the Good Food for Cities program. And I will be your host today. Just to mention that all the presentations will be in English, but there is interpretation available as well in Spanish. So if you would like to have interpretation in Spanish, we invite you to go outside and to pick up a headset and to select the Spanish language. Okay, I think nobody is going out, so we can probably start straight away. So as we all know, today's generation of young people is the largest in history, and we simply cannot transform food systems without them in the driver's seat. Young people are bringing renewal to the agri-food sector, from growing the food that we eat to inventing bold solutions to try to solve the most pressing challenges in our food system and to try to make it more sustainable. And of course, they deserve more than just to be included. They are entitled to decent job, dignified livelihoods, and long, healthy lives as well. And so the four organizations that are co-hosting this session today actually bring complementary expertise in strengthening the meaningful role of young people in urban food systems. So first we have Actionaid Italy, who has been working for many years on the issue of food poverty. And they recently actually conducted a study that colleague Roberto here will present very soon to try to understand how young people themselves are experiencing food poverty. And they also provided recommendations on how to strengthen the agency of young people going beyond the charity mindset. And then we have Rikolto, also through the Good Food for Cities program, who's been working with 37 cities, trying to make urban food environments more sustainable, more conducive to healthy diets. And particularly one of our initiatives, Generation Food, is trying to empower young people to develop food businesses that respond to the most pressing needs in their cities. And this approach was also embedded in the Afri-Food Links project, where Hivos and the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact and the City of Milan are actually also partners. And we have youth ambassadors as part of this Afri-Food Links project, which basically bring together 20 African and European representatives of young people from these cities, and they are connecting through peer learning, creative storytelling, and trying to bring also food systems closer to the lived experiences of people. And we're very lucky to have a youth ambassador from Milan with us today, who we will hear from in a minute. Then we also have Hivos, who's implementing Urban Futures, a project funded by the Botnar Foundation. The project supports local partners, especially young people in 10 intermediary cities across 5 countries to make local food systems more inclusive, climate resilient, and also food secure. And then finally, RUAF, also a member of Urban Futures, has been mobilizing a youth working group with more than 20 members, who is also acting as a place to exchange experiences amongst peers, young professionals in the food sector, try to solve problems together. So today's session focuses on youth agency, and agency is really the key word here. And this is far more than just engagement or consultation. Agency is really about the ability of young people to exercise choice and to act. And it means ensuring that those most affected by the problems that we're trying to solve are actually also shaping the solutions in the food system. And for young people and other marginalized groups in the food system, that often means providing support. And that means support in terms of building the skills, building the confidence, building the networks, to enable them to participate meaningfully in these food policy discussions. So as you will have sensed from this introduction, the purpose of the session is really to highlight concrete ways of building this youth agency so that young people's priorities are not just heard, but actually shape policy and practices. And our hope is that you leave this session really believing firmly that young people are leaders in creating more just and climate resilient urban food systems, and that we need to move beyond tokenism. So this is how we'll proceed. We'll first hear from Roberto from Actionaid, who will present his research on food poverty and the importance of supporting youth agency beyond charity. Then we'll hear from Hivos about the Urban Futures Initiative, first through a video from Medellin, and then also with a short presentation from our colleague Runia on experiences from Bulawayo in Zimbabwe and Chongwe and Kitwe in Zambia. And this will also be followed by a panel discussion with our guests from Medellin, from Milan, and also from Bali. And then we will finally close with a fireside chat with a few young people who will exchange and have a dialogue with the city representative. So before we start, I just wanted to quickly ask the audience, are there any city representatives in the room? Yes, great. Perfect. Great. It's nice to hear that we have a few representatives of the cities here. And do we have anyone who identifies as a young person for the purpose of this urban food policy process? I see a timid, no? Okay, we're all old people. Nah, I'm kidding. Yes, but she's of course invited to talk, yes. All right, no, that's always good to know who we have in the room, and we might get back to you in a minute afterwards. So thank you for choosing to spend the next hour and 15 minutes with us. I would like to now pass the floor to Roberto, who's a policy advisor from Actionaid. Over to you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Good morning, everyone. When I ask for young, you say feeling young or feeling young? Feeling young. Along with 10 minutes.
Oh, your microphone, yes.
Okay, sorry. Did you hear me? Okay. So it's not important what I just said. So thank you very much for being here. I just want to steal a few minutes to present some of the work we have been doing together with the Department of Political Science here in the University of Milan e percorsi di secondo welfare. So first of all, I want to share with you the main findings of a report that we just released a few days ago, focusing on adolescent food poverty in Italy. This report is based on interviews with girls and boys in three cities, Milan, Naples, and Rome. And the title translated sounds like the invisible distress of having no choice. So the main finding is that food poverty for adolescents in Italy is not just a lack of food. I will say that food security in a high-income country is not necessarily showing a lack of material food. It's multi-dimensional. It means struggling with having access to adequate and nutritious food, lose the freedom to choose, for example, what, when, and how to eat. Avoid social situation because stigma and shame. Forced to eat low quality or repetitive meals. So it's a multi-dimensional experience and often is hidden. Of course, it's shaped by economic insecurity, social exclusion, and unequal opportunities. Together with this study, we also conducted a national survey with an organization called WebOlab to explore how adolescents perceive food poverty in Italy. The survey was was a questionnaire. 2,200 young people aging between 14 and 19, representative of 3.5 million of peers in Italy. And the aim of this survey was to understand what food poverty means for young people, how present it is in their lives, the emotion and stigma linked to it, and of course the ideas for change. And the key findings are quite interesting. The first is that almost 3 out of 10 believe that there are peers in their neighbor who do not eat enough. It seems a few, because it's the 30%, but you need to consider that we are talking about a high-income country. So 30% of the interviews can say that to get close to them, there are young people that are no access to adequate food. So it's a quite high number. The second finding is that the 73% think that in Italy, not everyone really has the same opportunity to eat in a healthy and sufficient way, which is quite high as number. And over 60% say that they are willing to do something, even small, to help people in trouble. So, other findings that are interesting. For example, when we ask young people who should take responsibility for ensuring that everyone has access to a dignified diet, their answer is quite clear. It's a matter of shared responsibility, not charity. The 60% of adolescents say that the state and communities must act together through solid alliances between public institutions, schools, and local actors. Another 35% ask for a stronger role of the state because they believe that the real change requires structural public policies. For example, universal school meals, economic support for family, local services that guarantee equal access to food. Less just 1% think that the third sector should be left to deal with food poverty alone. So the message is clear. Young people want institutions to take responsibility and work together with communities rather than delegating the problem to the third sector. They ask for concrete and local solutions close to everyday life, at school, neighborhoods, local communities. Only 2% believe that everyone should manage on their own. So which means that Generation Z reject individualism and passive charity, and they see food as a right. And being food a right, state should take responsibility in respecting, protecting, and fulfilling this right. So last slide, coming back to the first study I just introduced, one of the main messages that the study presents is that the current response to adolescent food poverty are inadequate. They focus on emergency food and family support, but fail to address the specific needs of adolescents. As a result, young people remain excluded from policy design and treated as beneficiaries, not as actors. Food poverty in adolescents is not only a lack of food, we already said, it's a loss of choice, it's a loss of autonomy and social participation. This means that food aid alone can do very few. It addresses the symptoms, but it's not able to tackle the root causes. For this reason, we need to strengthen youth agency, which is not an optional, it's a necessity. Agency means enabling young people to participate in decision and action that shape the access to food. And this requires three, okay, I think there is, no, okay, the slide is not formatted in a proper way, but there are three main policy shifts. The first one is moving from emergency aid to entitlement. Universal and equitable school meal system, integrated with broader social protection policies, are more effective than fragmented food charity. The second one is moving from recipient to participant. Adolescents should be involved in decision-making process in school, municipality, local food communities. Participation is not an accessory. It is a condition for effective policy. And the third one, shift, is from food assistance to capability building. Intervention must expand young people's real opportunity to access, choose, and experience food in a meaningful way, building a positive relationship with eating and promoting overall well-being. These include, for example, food education linked to rights, enabling local food environments, and space for collective action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Roberto. And I think it's very clear that from what you're saying, that young people are craving the sense of community that sometimes is lacking in our societies. And also this emphasis on food as a right, I think is very important and is also what we will be hearing in some of the videos that we'll be showing a little bit later. And nice to hear also the concrete recommendations that Actionaid Italy has been able to draw on the basis of the study. So thank you very much, Roberto. And I now would like to invite René van Veenhuizen, who is a senior project manager at Hivos and also a long-term RUAF member and Milan Pact supporter, to introduce the Urban Futures project. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. And indeed, Roberto, these conclusions resonate very much with conclusions that we also see in other projects. We recently did a reporting, and you see this importance of building agency, taking time, building a systemic approach, and not trust a 4 years project alone, but collaborate with other programs as well in what we do. I'm going to briefly introduce, and then we show some 2 videos. Hivos is working on a number of topics related to climate justice and civic rights, and food justice is, and the role of young persons and meaningful participation is a key element of this. We have been working on Healthy Food Africa, supported by EU, on food labs, where the role of young people was not explicitly important, but became more and more important. Food Links is a program also funded by the EU. It's omnipresent this week, so there have been many sessions on this, and we will show a video later on the youth ambassadors of Food Links. But also there, in each of the cities we work, the role of young people are really important. I would like to quickly introduce the Urban Futures program, which is indeed funded by the Swiss Foundation of Botnar, which works explicitly on this intersection of urban development, urban planning, and youth participation. It's related to food systems, but the most important element is how can we enhance the role of young people and provide a future. So it's on this intersection of youth well-being and food systems change. It's operating in 10 cities, 10 city regions, I would like to say. Also the relation between young people in the rural areas, young people in the urban areas, and people on the move, young people on the move, young people's future prospects are key elements in Indonesia or Zimbabwe, Zambia, or Colombia, Ecuador. And we operate with our partners. There's a strong local partner coalitions and collaboration between different partners, youth organizations, multi-stakeholder platforms where municipal offices and local authorities take the responsibility, but also, as we'll see later, have particularly young people in the structures of the local authorities, and we work along policy change and governance change, narrative change, not only related to consumption, but also to the role of young people and the importance of having young people on board in governance change and policy making. Increasingly also, and that came by working with young people, the importance of working with agroecology or regenerative agriculture, technical expertise, technical training, capacity building came on board. It wasn't there in the beginning, but it became more and more prominent in close relation to providing capacity building and financing and jobs. And those are the 4 integrated elements that we work on. So that as a sort of introduction, I would like to show 2 videos. One is on Medellin. We have also the representative of the city of Medellin. So this is to introduce a young person working on agriculture production from the near rural areas to the city. And then we have a video on Kitwe that will introduce my colleague Runya, who gladly is here, who will take you further on the work in Southern Africa. So I think I have to click on this because it says IQ. I don't think that was the idea.
No, I think you can just click on the video.
Yeah, I think so. Huh? So here we go for the sound is good. Thank you.
Empecé mis estudios pensando que iba a trabajar en un laboratorio y la vida me ha traído a donde estoy, que en realidad es donde mi corazón siente que debe estar. Mi nombre es Natalia Luna Montenegro. Me gusta como empezar contando que soy de Nariño. Nariño es un departamento con una fuerte identidad campesina, indígena, y siento que ese fue el primer llamado. El modelo de CSA resuelve un problema que siempre han tenido la agricultura y es la comercialización justa de los alimentos. El contacto directo al eliminar intermediarios hace que hayan precios justos para ambas partes, no solamente para los agricultores, sino para las familias en la ciudad, para los coagricultores. Siempre hay una conexión directa entre los agricultores y los coagricultores, entonces sirve para tanto contar las cosas bonitas como contar cuando no suceden. Por ejemplo, cosas no tan lindas como una granizada y que pues compartir este sentimiento haga que el peso sea un poquito más liviano para los agricultores. Necesitamos contar más historias de posibilidad y de esperanza y dejar a un lado esas historias de crisis, de miedo y pensar pues que hay formas, hay maneras de conectarse siendo como agricultora, estas nuevas maneras de comercialización justa, pero también como coagricultores al tomar decisiones conscientes, perteneciendo a este tipo de procesos que generan vínculos muchísimo más allá de un alimento o de una transacción o una compra de alimentos. Me imagino un futuro urbano con ciudades que están más conectadas consigo mismas, conectadas con la tierra, conectadas con las demás personas, con ciudades que toman decisiones conscientes, que saben de qué y de quién se están alimentando, pero también con un campo que tenga garantías, con un campo en el que pues, los jóvenes que crecen en él vean de esta labor como un futuro viable en todos los aspectos, sostenible en el tiempo.
I think you can just, yeah, you should be back to this. Yeah. Okay.
We're so excited to be in the city of Kitwe. We are launching the Youth Champions Induction Meeting today. And 13 youths from Kitwe were selected to be the ambassadors of the project. They were selected to lead, to have their input in the decision-making process, and to really hear from them what they see as the needs of the community and how they can be proactive in helping us bring this to life.
Incline to your right.
Full speed.
Get the ball.
So why I love this man is because the most important thing he wrote in his diary was endurance. There are times where no matter what as a leader, you definitely have to endure. It's going to be tough.
So what I liked about this training is how the lessons were brought out. For me, I think I was expecting a typical workshop where you sit and write down notes on leadership, but the lessons were brought out in a manner that was in a fun way, in an involving way. I can say I participated in every lesson at every stage, and so that was what was really like standing out for me.
Teamwork is important because it makes things work faster, and it is able to help. You know, as a leader, you need support. You cannot do everything on your own. You need other people to lean on you so that you can be able to deliver accordingly.
To me, it's something I've been looking forward because it's something which is really guiding us to show us the pathways we really need to follow, what we really need to do for us to implement this particular project in Kitwe, for us to really be impactful in the community out there.
This is a very important meeting because it gives insights to our youth champions on what is expected of them, because we have various leadership roles that these youths have to play. So this meeting, brings out their key roles and responsibilities as Urban Futures Youth Committees.
We grow! Forward! We grow! Forward!
Thank you very much, René, for introducing Urban Futures, and I'm now very happy to also invite Runia Raro-Chibota to the stage, and thank you, Roberto, you're welcome also to join the floor. So Runia is actually the regional coordinator for Southern Africa at Urban Futures, and Runia will share lessons from Zimbabwe and Zambia on how to meaningfully engage young people and integrate their lived experiences in urban food systems. So we don't have a clicker, but you can just use the arrows to change over to you. And if you can try to keep it to 5 minutes, that'd be great. Thank you.
Hello? Perfect. Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to try to do it in 5 minutes. It's a very passionate topic for me. Yes, so I'm here to talk about how, as Hivos, we've been creating spaces for young people to mobilize change in the food system space, and particularly creating spaces for governance. We have 3 projects that we've done over the past few years in partnership with RUAF, UNICEF, Bonner Foundation, and other local partners. And all our 3 projects have been focused on increasing the young people's voices. We realize that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow, and they need to participate in the food dialogues, particularly because of the high rise in non-communicable diseases, a lot of obesity, malnutrition, a lot of high blood pressure issues that have been coming up in young people, even our 30s, 20s these days, unlike when we were in our 50s. And a lot of the time in Africa, people would eat healthy only when they're sick, and eating healthy was associated with illness. Eating indigenous food was associated with poverty. And so we are changing that narrative and trying to create spaces where youth influence policies that promote indigenous foods, where we promote healthy food and actually choose it to be a lifestyle, building climate resilience and mitigating the impacts of climate change. And we've used a couple of vehicles over the time to mobilize change in policy, in governance. The first channel we've used is food change labs. We've used participatory research, multi-stakeholder platforms, youth governance structures like the youth committee you saw that we were inducting in Kitwe, capacity building, policy and advocacy, and safe spaces for innovation, and access to finance to boost enterprises. So I'll elaborate a little bit more. Some of you might be familiar with the Theory U approach. So we conducted food labs using the Theory U approach and got multi-stakeholders in the room, including young people. We ran it for a couple of 3 months, and we would meet with the youths to unpack what are the challenges they're facing in their community, what are the solutions, and we also had an amazing time of doing prototypes, as you can see on the right. Well, those Legos, it's not a game. We were actually coming up with prototypes as to how would we solve the community problem. And we actually brought those prototypes to life. One of our award-winning youth actually set up a hydroponics farm and was committed to training other young people, and he saw that young people need to see farming as attractive, and it's not something for old age people or something you do when you failed in school, but rather it can be your first priority and your mandate to the city. And we found those food labs quite enticing, enjoyable, fun, interactive, because they would engage with various multi-stakeholders in the food sector, as well as the city council were quite active with us. And it broke that barrier, and it created a space where there was equal opportunity and equal decision-making space in the room, regardless of your portfolio. We also realized research, I think even this whole week we've realized research cannot be far away from influencing change. You need to back up what we're trying to change in the policy space. And so we did GIS mapping, capturing the lived experiences of young people, what influences their food choices, and what is the food that's accessible to them. And they were part of that research, going to their community, researching, finding out what is being provided in the schools, in the neighborhood, in the tuck shops, what exactly is in the shops nearest to them. And we found out that one of the things quite obvious in tuck shops or small informal shops is there's a lot of junk food, a lot of snacks, and that's what the kids eat as they're on their way to school. So in understanding the gaps and the opportunities, we created policy briefs that we submitted to the City Council, Bulawayo and Harare, and we said we need to start creating closer access to healthy food and maybe talking to the informal markets on the side of the road to sell and market healthier food, and therefore make it more accessible and affordable for everyone. We noticed one of the other things really influencing young people's diets is media and what they see as trendy and catchy, but we can make healthy food trendy and catchy as well. And that stirred up conversations in that space. Multi-stakeholder platforms, I think you're quite familiar with this. As an approach, we also used, sometimes we were activating existing stakeholder platforms that the government already has. So we didn't necessarily start new ones, but we had to find out what is already existing and how can we lobby for youths to be part of that decision-making space in that room. And so far, I'll get to the results, what we've managed to do with some of the youths and the involvement they've participated. And then one vehicle we've also found very useful is in every project, you should have a committee so that's the committee you saw up there, the Kitwe committee, where the youths will be able to influence the decision-making of the project as well, to input right from the beginning and not only consult youths at the end. We often engage youths as tokenistic approach, like at the end just ticking a box. But through this youth committee, we've trained them on what does it mean to be a responsible leader? How do you communicate and advocate for your rights in a way that you can be heard? What spaces can you, often the youth don't know where to engage or what platforms. And so we've educated the youth on what platforms to engage in. And then most importantly, we've also created safe spaces for the youth. So we're setting up innovation hubs in each city so that the youth can have a safe space to share their problems, challenges, but also to equip them with practical skills. If you want to get the attention of young people, you need to solve their livelihood, their day-to-day challenge. A lot of them are going through other personal issues at home. And so when you cultivate a space where you're meeting the immediate emotional need, and practical skill and green skills, they will be willing to now talk about policy and dialogue and make the time for it. Because when you ask them to attend meetings, you're taking them away from their livelihoods, taking them away from their home responsibilities. So we have to factor in that they're a whole person and not just a lobbying machine, right? Some of the key findings we got from our workshop were that, like I mentioned, there's the low-income households that's affecting people's access to meals. And then also people are depending on remittances from overseas. And this is what came out of the labs and the research with the young people, that a lot of people are depending on food coming from across South Africa, Mozambique, as well across those borders in the cities we implement. And then most of the young youth diets are high in sugar. We did food diaries to make the youth account for what they're eating and what's influencing those decisions. And a lot of it was sugars and starches, which is quite challenging to move away from. This is a photo of our youth. So we set up youth committees in the 4 cities we work in. And this is basically, there's a governance structure, there's the chair, the vice, the secretary. And we have policy leads, as you can see on the left-hand corner. And these are the youths who run and lobby all the policy issues. They spearhead. So we educate the youths and then we train them and they go out in the community. Now this committee, we fund them to do youth-led activities around agriculture, around healthy food consumption, around narratives, access to finance, and they're all connected because policy is influenced obviously by agroecology, finance, and all the issues that you are trying to fight around. And so this committee in each city discuss from the youth. They share with us and we take it up to the higher powers. And it's been such an amazing journey working with these youths. Do follow us. There's a lot of work that they've been doing. You can get in touch with me later. I think I've summarized the project outcomes here. Some of the other milestones that we've achieved, like I said, increasing youth engagement in policy. In Kitwe, the youths have now been able to revive the district youth committee and securing seats in the former city governance platforms. Kitwe is based in Zambia, the Copper Belt. And now the youths have been fully equipped to participate in these governance structures to input what their challenges are, their views and suggestions to the government. We've also, in Chongwe and Zambia, we've managed to get the youths into the national policy advocacy space, submitting proposals around seed biodiversity and food systems. In Bulawayo, we educated youth on green skills, but also policy. So we had 52 youths who've graduated in the green skills urban food systems at Umpani State University, but we also equipped them with the relevant policies and legislation that affects their green businesses or agroecology as a whole, urban town planning. Urban agriculture policy review, the youths participated in that. There were enumerators, advocates, and influencing that debate about how can we ensure urban agriculture is resilient, but also considering the issues you have to consider when doing town planning as well. In Mutare, the youths prepared a position paper for the Central Business District Development Plan, and we engaged the Junior Parliament in the food systems policies, just looking at how we can allocate spaces for business, for food businesses in the space in the city. So as you can see, our young people are not sitting down. They are feeling equipped, they're feeling empowered, and they're ready to engage in the relevant platforms to make a change. And it's been great to watch them grow and influence the change. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ronia, and it's so inspiring, and we can see the energy also from the video that was shared earlier, that those young people really enjoyed being there and being part of this community. And I think it was quite funny what you said. We have to see them as a whole person, not as just an advocacy machine. I think that's always good to remember, and make sure that we don't just support young people to take part in policy, but also try to address really their daily needs, because that's, of course, what is so important to them. And also what you said, we don't have to necessarily create new structures, but it's about creating space and accompanying young people to to participate and to meaningfully engage with those spaces, and also working with the people in those spaces so they actually hear young people and make the space for them to contribute. So thank you very much, Ronia, and we'll hear back from you afterwards in the youth panel. So I invite you to sit back in the room, and I would like now to welcome to the stage our city representatives. So I would like to call to the floor Mrs. Natalia Cardona, Director of Positioning and Communications of the City of Medellin. Also, Cristina Sosan, Food Policy Officer of the City of Milan, and then Halima Namubiru, Principal Agriculture Officer from the City of Mbale. And unfortunately, Bwalia Funga from Lusaka was not able to travel in the end, so it will be a slightly smaller panel. Sorry, you please make your way. So, first of all, thank you so much for accepting the invitation to join us in this panel. It's really a delight to have you here, and we know that each of you brings really valuable experiences from your cities, and we're looking forward to hearing those stories. So, to keep the conversation lively, we gave them a double challenge. First, no slides, and second, keeping it quite short, maximum 5 minutes. And we asked you to reflect on 2 key questions, which I'll put here, and then we'll go back to the photos. Basically, we would like to hear from you about how your city is building the agency of young people to contribute to food policy and governance processes. But we also would like you to reflect on what do you see as the potential limitations of that approach, and what more could be done. And we will actually start first with you, Natalia, then we'll move to Halima, and we'll finish with Cristina. So over to you, Natalia, just maybe to introduce you briefly. So you represent the Agency of Cooperation and Investment of the City of Medellin, which almost made us all cry last night at the Milan Pact Awards.
Was me?
No, it was. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, stop.
I honestly was very touched when you were talking, so I'm sure it was the case for a lot of people. And so basically you're leading the strategy of the city to connect it to the rest of the world. So we are of course very curious to hear about how you engage with young people.
Oh my God, thank you so much. This means a lot for me, and I feel so proud to be here representing the city, because as I was telling the people here in this event, for us it's been a hard work, like changing the image of Medellin, because before we were representing just cocaine, Pablo Escobar, and that was the image that people has about us, because the Netflix series and everything, the bad news was coming from everywhere. And now we are changing the story. So I think that this is starting, for getting this award for us is really impressive, because it's been a hard work for the cities in different administrations, and now finally we can say the city has been changing, and the story finally changed. So for me, being here it means a lot, and everybody in Medellin is waiting for me to come back and tell everything that I have learned here, what I have heard from you, and I was crying last night because it's really emotional. So I'm gonna tell a little bit what we are doing right now for young people, because this is pretty much the topic of this panel. And I'm going to tell 4 key points that we have worked is young participation has a strategy component. Medellin has recognized the importance of young people participating in food governance and has designed initiatives to involve all these people in planning, implementation, and social control of public food policies. For the second point, we have platform of articulation. This is one of the most beautiful. We have this platform that it calls Medellin Zero Hunger. It's an alliance between the public sector, private sector, and big institutions that wants to be part of this project. And we collect, it's pretty much when we are doing the visits 2 days ago, it's pretty much we collect from the biggest supermarkets food that is about to expire. In that way, that's not wasted food, it's food that we can start giving the people, because a lot of people that they don't have anything to eat in one day, they don't have no food. So we try to give those kind of food that they can live without food for longest time, beans, soy, and oatmeals, like those kind of nutrients that they can survive for a longer time. I guess you guys can know what I'm talking about. The other one is a Zero Hunger Strategy project, which complements the first one that I was telling you. So those platform articulations, it really improves our work in this case. Spaces for participation. Medellin, we have consolidated a lot of spaces that bring together institutional, community, academic, and a lot of citizens actors, including the young people from territories to exchange knowledges and formulate different recommendations, and they can be decision making in food policies. For the 4th point, we have participation in school feeding. The city has institutionalized participation spaces in school feeding programs, how we can participate in public tables, school feeding committees, which allow students to be really active and participate in those program evaluation and can propose a new formulations for the food systems. Also, we are going to talk about the challenge and opportunities. One of the biggest challenges that we have is sometimes they have limited influence on policies decisions, so which has made this harder. Another one is despite progress in your participation can remain uneven across territory between the urban, territory, and the other sectors in the city. We have showed that for the young people, the participation is a key to be effective in a food governance, because all those spaces can be crucial to influence the decision making on everything that the city does for this. Also, another thing is the public sector works really hard to integrate the communities, integrate the private sector to prioritize this in the city, and they can see exactly all that is affecting, because how we were listening yesterday, nutrition is everything. It depends a lot for the society. And all these young people is gonna be the future, and that's why we have to change the story. And that's the reason why the city works really hard and create all those programs, and that's why it's so meaningful to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Natalia, and great to hear about how you also create spaces for these students to participate in the school feeding evaluation and also in the updates of the program. And but yeah, we hear also the challenges. Not easy to involve all types of young people, the urban versus the rural, I guess, divide or peri-urban divide is still there. Thank you very much, and we will continue the conversation also with the dialogue with the young people afterwards. Then I would like next to invite Halima Namubiru, who's the Principal Agriculture Officer for the City of Mbale. Also received a mention yesterday, so we're very lucky to have a lot of a lot of award and special mentions winners, so congratulations again. So we'll ask you the same question. How is the City of Mbale building the agency of young people to contribute to food policy and governance processes, and what do you see as potential limitations and way to strengthen this in the future? You're also welcome to stand if you prefer, and I can give you the mic. It's up to you.
Oh, no, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, like you have heard from Mbale City. We are grateful that we among those who were mentioned on the. Can you hear me?
No, yes.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah. Okay. What is Mbale City doing with the youth? On a participation, our food governance, like the food parliament and the food council, the youth are represented, and we have gone as long as including the school-going children to also participate on the MSIP. When we're having those meetings, we invite them, since we have that work on school coalition. So we have representatives from the schools who are also on the MSIP. And the youth are there to hear their voices and what they also think about the policies and whatever we discuss in the food parliament. On support, the government has affirmative action on the youth. We make sure every project we are implementing, every program, the youth are at the forefront. For example, we have a program called the Parish Development Model, where we have 30% of youth as beneficiaries. These youth are selected, trained, and supported with funds. And I'm happy that among those youth, there are those who are very developmental, like one who took up coffee processing. We have also made this fund flexible, that there are no conditions attached that allow the youth to access the fund easily. You don't need security, all you need is a national ID. And then you can get the fund, go and implement on a project of your choice. All we want is to see you go forward. And we have seen these youth grow, like one doing the coffee processing. He's into processing coffee, roasting, and this coffee is used to give other youth who are riding the motorcycles, which is mainly done at night. It's a long night job. Instead of taking drugs to keep them awake, they're now using the coffee roasted to keep them awake, which we saw as an initiative that is supporting the government on curbing down on use of drugs and also changing behavior. We have those who are doing chalk. We go ahead to connect them to markets. So if you are making chalk, the government has bought for you a machine for making chalk. We go ahead to connect you to schools which are around so that they give you market. Whereas you make chalk, you are sure of the market. So the youth are sure that when they make their chalk, they have the market where to sell it. So we find that our youth are very dynamic because they keep changing. All they need is money, quick money. So if you need to meet their solutions, it should be something that's going to bring in money. And that's what we try to do to help them access money for their needs. And we have also supported these youth to form groups where we can meet them and build their capacity. And now, as far as groups, the government has made it that all village health teams should be people below 30 years. So we are targeting the youth to take up those jobs. That if you want to be in the health village team, you should be below 30 years, and that's it. And then in the agricultural sector, where we are doing the practical training centers, all the community-based facilitators should be youth. So as far as youth, we are doing everything possible to bring them on board in all corners to see that they are actively participate in the government programs. And however much we are doing that, still sometimes it's difficult to work with the youth because their needs are always changing, and even their programs and plans. You plan today, we are going to do poultry, fine, we do the project, the planning, and then at implementation, they get friends like, no, this one won't give you money, go to this. And the plan is changed overnight, you see that. So we find a challenge with that. And then also sustaining the groups of these youth. Most of the times when we build their capacity in some project, when you move a journey, they reach somewhere, they drop off. It is hard to maintain them on the line, like to keep them with you. They keep on changing, they keep on moving, you know. Today they are in Mbale, next month they will be in Kampala. You know, they are all over looking for how to survive. So there's also that challenge of sustaining the groups together for some time. Then the resource envelope, fine, the money is there, but it's not enough. Like, you cannot meet, the youth are the biggest population in our country. So even though we touch the 30%, still you find that many are still left out. How are we working out to uplift this or to work around it? One of the ways is, like those who are progressing, we try to publish their work, like what they are doing. We show the successful youth so that other youth can also see the works of the successful ones so that they can also copy and do the same, and also believe that things can be possible. And then we also use the fellow youth leaders to mobilize them so that when we have a program, we send out the youth to go and look for the fellow youth so that they can bring them on board and participate in the programs. And then we also make sure that the programs are youth attractive. The projects, like, they are youth attractive. They're in the value chain of like processing, marketing. That's where their interest is. And that's where we focus our energy to ensure their active participation. Yeah, thank you so much. That's what we are doing as Mbale City.
Thank you very much, Halima, and very interesting to hear how you put also money on the table to finance youth-led initiatives, how you also create jobs that are specifically for young people. You mentioned the village health teams, and you focus really on the needs of young people instead of just assuming also what it is that they need, and this focus on peer learning. So thank you for sharing, and I'm sure this will have sparked questions from our young people who will come in a little bit later. So thank you very much. And then over to you then, Cristina Sosan, who's a food policy officer at the City of Milan and also project manager for School Food for Change, a European project who some of you might have heard of in the previous session. Over to you.
Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. So here with me, there is also Alice Kazragi for just a short overview on one of the actions. So, as Charlotte was saying, I'm working in the food policy office of the city of Milan. So I briefly touched the issue of youth engagement because it's a big, big issue for us. Because actually when we started to draft our food policy, for instance, and the priorities, we had a process of consultation with many organizations in the city, but not particularly with the young people. And year after year, actually, it became one of the issues to, start to think about. So, as in many occasions happens, there's a project. Okay, we want a project. We wrote a project on something that we would like to work on. Okay, the project passed, and okay, now we have to work on that. So what can we do? Okay, yes, of course, we put some ideas in the project, but then we have to make it a reality, especially if we haven't done anything specifically with youth. As probably you know, or I mean, I just tell you briefly that we are very engaged in school canteens with very young people, let's say pupils, so not youngsters. And we do a lot of food education from 3 to 11, but then everything finished. So with these two projects, Food Wave in particular, and now Feed Your Future, we have tried to start a new way of involving youngsters and young people, especially trying to also to think how can we make them more aware of what is our food policy, what is the policy of our municipality, because we felt that they were completely outside of this issue. We are doing a lot of things on food policy, a lot of knowledge, a lot of involvement, a lot of technical things, but we don't have the capacity to involve them and to make them be part of this policy. So we tried with this food wave. We tried with the analysis, let's say, so we did a report, a research in some countries in Europe to understand how young people were participating in the food systems, in their food system. So try to have a map, mapping the system, mapping the reality. Second, we worked on training and, let's say, reducing, as I was saying, the gap between policymakers and who receives the policy, and actually try to listen more their voices. Third, giving them the opportunities. The colleague of Mbale said, so funds. So we decided to promote some actions, and we give some funds to young association, informal association of young people, to promote creative and innovative projects, like also in terms of cultural projects, to speak about climate, food, and sustainability. And the result was that many organizations, many local organizations presented some projects, and we were able to spread these experiences around the cities. We also tried to make a community of practice, but I have to say that we really have to improve on that. So try to keep open the fil rouge, with the connection with these organizations and these young people. Also because maybe they are young, but they grow, and so the same, contacts that we had get lost. And as you were saying, there are lots of changes. They are always changing, so it's not easy to keep ongoing the work. So the main obstacles is how to raise and to keep this awareness on them. And I leave the floor to Alice just to explain to you another experience on the assembly of the citizens that we have in Milan, that now is also concentrating on youth assembly of citizens for climate.
Thank you, Cristina. So Cristina was very kind to invite me for 30 seconds, so I'll be brief. Milan, having experience with creating networks with food policies, I think successfully, is trying to create an assembly also on youth and climate, not necessarily food, but just youth and climate. I don't have slides, so...
Just maybe raise the...
Oh, sorry. So the network is called the YEA. It's a Youth Engagement Action Hub. It's part of a European project. We work together with the Oikos Foundation. And we're trying to reach out to cities and organizations that are interested in the topic. And at the same time, we're building a community with the students in high schools in Milan. So we will create a climate assembly with them on the topics that relate climate and youth in the city. Thank you.
That will happen in 2026, no?
Yes, in
okay.
April 2026.
So maybe we will see you also again in Milan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. No, that sounds great. And what I also enjoyed hearing that, yes, maybe at the start you did not think so much about involving young people, not only young people, but really the people that the food policy is trying to serve. But it's never too late to actually, to start and to recreate that connection and to create opportunities for young people to be part of the revision process, the additional process, etc. So it's not because you haven't done it from the beginning that it's not something you can do now. So thank you so much to our panelists for sharing these experiences. I would like you to stay here and we will actually ask some of our youth representatives to come, but I would first also like to invite Mrs. Carlotta Millone. She's a project officer at RUAF and she's also coordinating the work of the RUAF working group, and she will be moderating the next session. But maybe I can already invite to the floor some of the, So I would like to invite also Tejitu Kaziragi, who's the AfriFood Links youth ambassador for the city of Milan. And also I would like to invite back Runia Chibota from Urban Futures to also participate in the discussion. And I think, no, you will still be, we will still ask you some questions, so you can stay. There's a chair here as well. There you go. And then we have, I do not need a chair, so maybe you can stay there, Runia. Yeah, perfect. So over to you, Carlotta.
Hello. Okay, great. So thank you, Charlotte, and thanks to all of you for being here with us today. As Charlotte mentioned, my name is Carlotta, and I'm RUAF's Project and Communications Officer, but I'm also part of the RUAF Youth Working Group, so I'm particularly excited to be leading this conversation today on youth agency and meaningful engagement in food systems governance. We'll spend about half an hour together focusing on the concrete needs of young people and how to better build their agency. To start, let's hear from some voices who are not in the room, some of the AfriFood Links youth ambassadors, sharing what they would change about food systems and their message to city leaders. So we have a video for that. Yes.
Transforming food systems starts
with cities like ours. La transformation
du système alimentaire commence dans des villes comme la nôtre.
The future of food in cities belongs to those who dare to reimagine it. AfriFood Links youth ambassadors share unique insights, local realities, bold ideas, and their commitment to building sustainable, resilient food systems in their cities. We asked our youth ambassadors, if you could change one thing about your city's food system, what would it be? Here's what they had to say.
I think we can start by imagining a world where access to nutritious food isn't a daily struggle.
Si je pouvais en fait changer les choses, je commencerais par l'éducation.
There's an issue with the food safety and there's a lot of outbreak of different diseases, so there's a need of really assessing how safe the food are.
And I think there's a lot of things that I would change, but one thing, I think the variety of food that we produce ourselves.
To implement a lot more street food markets.
I would like to transform or see the formalization of informal markets and informal traders, as they play a huge role in our food system and our economy.
One thing I would want to transform in my city is how there's a lot of food wastage.
The youth ambassadors share their messages of hope, inspiring change for food systems in African cities.
So my message to the city officials and leaders in my city about our food systems is that our food future is in your hands and it is up to you to implement it while you are still in office, while you still have the power. So we're counting on you.
Our city leaders, indigenous ingredients and then recipes are not for the poor. They are for anyone looking to eat healthy and stay healthy.
Le courage des jeunes et l'implication de la jeunesse dans la transformation des systèmes alimentaires est la clé pour le développement de notre pays.
The transformation has to happen now and here. And the youth or young people as change makers, they have a great role on it, a great responsibility. We need to all be part of this process.
Each one of us has a role to play. We shouldn't sit back and wait for someone to start, but rather to get into action, to start taking small steps, but in the right direction.
Food is cross-cutting. Collaboration is key. Urban food systems need bold transformation.
Great. No? Okay. So now let's turn to the people in the room. We'll hear from two inspiring youth participants, Tejitu Kaziragi and Runia Chibota, who will each share an opinion, an observation, an experience, and as well as a question to the city leaders we have with us. So let's begin with Tejitu, an AfriFood Link youth ambassador for the city of Milan. Please share your experience on youth agency and ask a question to a city representative.
Hi, do you hear me? Yes. Hi, I feel honored to have been invited as a youth ambassador for AfriFood Links. I was not ready to talk at the beginning of the week, so I'm emotional. And I started the project with AfriFood Links after he was already started, so for me, it was a little bit hard to understand the topic of AfriFood Links, but after coming to this event, I understood better that AfriFood Links is a big community. It's not done by people, by youth, but it has an important structure. And I started the project because I'm passionate about Africa, and the idea of being a bridge between the two countries, Europe and Africa. And as a youth ambassador, I post on Instagram, and one time I posted also on LinkedIn what I see. And so I posted something about food, about some museum over food or some markets. And I also posted some events that were related to food. One time I went to Fondazione BVA, that it was also in the plan of the week, and I saw how they are working over it, over food, and I think that the good thing for youth is to discover this project, because the problem is that sometimes youth doesn't know that there are this kind of activity for youth. And so my question is, how can, for you, Christine, how can youth can know this project, especially the people that they are in the university? Because you told me before that there is the project Fit for Future, but it's most for association. How a single person can do something?
Do I reply now or later when they finish?
You can reply now.
Okay. Well, the thing is that it's a suggestion for us also on how we communicate, because our communication channel are, as I was saying before, more oriented on specialists, experts. So we are trying to do some campaigns, educational campaigns, but for for pupils. So, you can go on the website and you'll find everything actually. And I can imagine that probably is the way that we communicate that is not so, attractive for you, because actually all the young people are always on social media, so you should be able to find everything, but probably the way that we communicate our action are not attractive, also because probably there are not direct opportunities. We also have a problem in Italy in involving young people in, for instance, a lot of activities that we do. That is that if they are not 18, it's really hard to make them participating to any volunteering activities because we don't have the insurance. It's difficult to cover their expenses. We cannot. So there are some burdens that for sure we have to try to find out how to manage. But nowadays I can say that you can find all the information on how you want to be volunteer through the website and through the channels that we have, because we are now communicating much more than before.
Tejitu, do you have anything else you want to say to her, or?
I can advise, for example, some activity that they can do all together as a community, because I think that youngs needs to feel a community. Otherwise, alone, sometimes they are shy and they cannot start something alone.
Yeah, I'll actually, here in this room, there are some people that when were younger like me, like Roberto and Giacomo, we were activists. we have been a lot of activism. We have done a lot of activism. And what I can see is that actually today, I mean, climate and food are, you are calling for participation and protest. But from my point of view, what I can see is that it's difficult for you to actually, as you said, take part in processes. So probably in this period it's really difficult also for municipalities, for cities, for public entities to give you the opportunity to enter within the system. Or for also, there is also kind of a different type of participative process also for the NGOs and organizations that things have changed. The social media now makes you more present as an individual rather than a community. And this is visible especially in Europe and in, I think in northern country. Yeah.
Thank you both for these insights. And now let's hear from Runia. So please share your experience or opinion and ask your question.
Thank you very much, and thank you for sharing.
We cannot hear properly.
Hello? Okay. Sorry, thanks. I think I shared a bit of my experience, but I want to zone in on how do you, so you want the youth to participate, but often they have competing priorities. Like I said, we mentioned livelihoods. I think you also mentioned it in Bali, that we want the young people to participate, but they are saying, look, this is the same time that we need to be selling our stuff or need to be in school. From my experience working with young people, they sign up for these trainings for 6 weeks, 3 weeks, but they end up at home being asked, where are you spending the rest of your day? You've got chores, you've got responsibilities, or they are chasing, like I said, financial livelihoods. So my question is to all of you, what are the best practices you've seen in making time for the youth to be heard, but also balancing with their conflicting priorities, whether it's business, school, or home responsibilities? How have you managed to integrate the challenges around that and making sure that they come into those spaces for dialogue? So I'll start maybe with you, and then Vale, and then Milan.
I think creativity and innovation is a good solution to address. Can you guys hear me? No? Yes? It's open. I think creativity give the opportunity for them to be more being expressive and they can be themselves, that is a good way that can complement everything that the cities are doing, especially in our case, because they can play a good role in good ideas and in a new vision that probably we don't have. And also teen training and education is crucial here, because if we don't give the opportunity them to be more educated, have more experience and understand the food policies and the system, how they are going to contribute the communities, how they are going to contribute the families if they don't even understand what is it, right? And another thing is involving the city participation, which include the family. I think this is an important role. I don't know how it works in the other cities, but we are so familiar, and I think that everything starts from home. So it's good to mention because we really believe that they can be, the family play a good role because family can be shaping healthy habits, promoting good health, good lifestyle, and now it's different for this generation can understand, because we see opposite sides. They can be too involved, or we have the other side that is completely the opposite. So I think that for us has been working the way we implement to include those aspects.
No, someone else is going to speak.
Okay. What I would think about that is...
we cannot hear you too much. Now it's off. Now it's on.
Okay. What we can do with the youth is to do the needs assessment, to know what are their needs, what would they love to learn, so that it's not a general curriculum. We draw it with them. They tell us their needs. If you're keeping poultry, if you're doing something, what would you love to learn? I'm sure if you have that need, you'll get time for it. And then we develop the curriculum together, and then we create on which days can we meet. Can it be once in a month or so that we agree with them and so that they can fix it in their programs. And we also avoid the busy times. For example, in the evenings where they're going to play their football or something like that. We agree with them on the time. And like we are saying, we are creating the practical training centers. These are nearby their homes, whereby they can just walk to the training center, have short trainings. They should be kept short so that they don't see them as wasting their time. And if there are meetings, we invite them ahead of time, and we should have something interesting for the youth. I know if it is interesting and it's touching, you will always create time for it. Yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, and well, I think also that the comments, I agree with them. And one of the things that we are also trying always to do is not to, to try to involve our stakeholders and also the young people, as I was saying, in training and, increasing the relations and the trustness, probably, because what we are doing, I mean, in our case, it's a lot of efforts, a lot of engagements, and most of the times you don't feel, probably the young people don't feel that we are doing enough. It's never enough. Of course, it's never enough. It's true. It will never be enough, never, because the resources are lacking, the people are lacking, but we are doing our best. And probably we should try to, as we do also with the school canteens and with the parents in the school canteens, like my colleague was saying before, trying to bring you there, bring you in the places, bring you and see the efforts of the people that is working on some fields, in that fields, to make you feel the passions, probably also on that work, on that specialization. Will it be the farm? Will it be the school canteen? Will it be the food aid? So keeping you closer to the reality of what is happening, because many things in our cities are happening. It's difficult because we don't have time. We have to do this, you have to do this. So it's always a matter also of taking the time, finding the time also for us that are policymakers and operators to take you in the places and explain and make you be part of these processes.
Thank you very much. We still have time for a brief last question from... Then, sorry. Okay, never mind the final question. Let's move on. So we were supposed to have a video from Sandeepa Bandari that you can see on the screen, but unfortunately for technical reasons, we do not. So what we've just heard from youth in the room, from youth that couldn't be here, and from the city leaders, shows the importance of young people contributing ideas and leadership at the local level. And I would like to add that local engagement is not enough, because true youth agency requires support both locally and globally, so that young people can fully participate in shaping the food systems that affect their lives. Talking about the broader policy level, the Committee on World Food Security, the CFS, has recently developed policy recommendations on promoting youth engagement and employment in agriculture and food systems. This is a key step towards ensuring that the issues like the one we've spoken about today are also reflected in global agendas. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm part of the RUAF Youth Working Group, and just 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of co-moderating our third webinar, which focused on these very recommendations. And we invited participants from different regions, mainly Africa and Asia, to reflect on how these global policy tools connect with their lived experiences. And I'm just going to briefly share 2 main themes that stood out. First of all, land access, which wasn't mentioned too much today, but young participants in the group emphasized the urgent need for better access to land as a foundation for their participation in food systems. In Asia, participants called for stronger support for indigenous communities, particularly around land access, but also land restoration. In Africa, land ownership remains concentrated among older people, and so this limits opportunities for youth, especially for young women in rural areas as well. So this is the first theme, and the second theme, which was mentioned a bit more, is access to finance. Participants from Asia shared that existing financing schemes don't specifically target young people, and administrative hurdles make it really hard to access loans, particularly for new or small businesses. But without financial support, it becomes very difficult for youth to innovate and take the lead in food systems innovation. And this point really resonated with me because I'm also working at the moment on an urban futures analysis that René explained before. And one common issue that has been identified in around at least 7 cities out of the 10 of the project, and which is an issue that the project aims to address, is indeed this limited access to finance for youth-led initiatives. So I was glad to hear that in Mbale, things are being done for this. And the challenge, my conclusion is that the challenges we've heard about today, from projects, young people not being aware of projects, to not being properly included, to difficult access to finance, and so on, are symptoms of the fact that young people are not fully included or not fully empowered to take part in shaping the systems that affect their lives. So if there is one thing I hope you remember from this discussion, it's that youth, to achieve food system transformation, cannot just be beneficiaries of policies, but they need to be co-creators of change. I hope this conversation has sparked ideas that you can take forward in your work and share within your networks. And thanks a lot for listening. Charlotte, the floor is yours again.
And we're almost finished. You're 2 minutes away from your lunch, but I just would like to invite Jess Halliday, the Executive Director of RUAF and also food policy expert, to just lay down a little challenge for the people in the room.
Thank you, Charlotte, and well done to our panel today. So I've been taking notes throughout this session, but actually Carlotta's conclusion was wonderful, and I don't have much more to add, although we will be blogging about the lessons from this session. But I would just like to make a little observation and lay down a challenge. So I noticed that the people in this room, although Charlotte asked us who identifies as youth, I would love to say I identify as youth, but I would be kidding myself. But we have noticed that at the Milan Pact, actually, there aren't that many young people here. Perhaps it's because the aim is for mayors and for local governments, and we're also in competition with the World Food Forum. But we believe that it's really important to create the space for young people at every level. So at the school committee level, at the city level, at the national level, and in these international spaces. We heard from Teja today the value that she has found in connecting her Afro-Food Links experience with the wider picture. So the challenge I have for everyone in this room is, next time at the Milan Pact, is there someone on your team who's under 30, under 35, who you could bring along with you? We would love to see, to involve, and to hear from more young people, and to really start to build that capacity at every level, including in this forum.